And in the bottom left-hand side, sporting the most beautiful logo in esports, it is DisK. Gaming. Yeah, I'm with you. This map is difficult to make Queen Walks work, right? Because of the RAM, because the third's going to be actually pretty far away unless the Protoss takes the triangle, which I don't see why they would. And yeah, so I guess those two main reasons are what scares me off. And I guess if they choke through the middle as well, if they start walking through the red zone, that would be a problem as well.
Yep, Queen's are already very slow off creep, but if they go through a slow zone, they get even slower. It's hard to imagine, but it's a real thing. Who designed the most beautiful logo in esports, Cats?
Andrew was his name, if I recall correctly. I made the original sketch, and then I worked with him, but he was a much better artist than I, so he iterated on it, and that's the version that he came up with.
Oh, I was actually setting it up for you to just say me. I thought it was you.
I wish. The original Root logo. There's still some shirts with the original Root logo. And, it's decent, but this one's killer.
All right. Well, so far everything very standard. DisK going for the 1 gate fast expand, taking both of his gases in the main base, while Namshar is going for hatchery first, and also going for the pool behind it. It'd be very, very, very weird if there was no pool. I mean, is there a drone rush? I guess there was a thing once upon a time where you just made like 18 drones and you would work a rush, but don't think it ever happened at the highest level. Yeah, exactly. You could
do something. Yeah, on that map against Terran, I think you could do that and have it work sometimes, because Terran's gonna have a couple of SCVs building stuff. So yeah, you can really mess them up. But yeah, they don't make maps like that anymore.
I have to admit that in my early days, I've lost to worker rushes.
Yeah.
Have you?
Well, I'm Zerg.
Yeah.
I guess you're Protoss, but Terran, I think, is the most likely race to lose to Worker Rush. I can't recall if I've lost to, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had.
Well, I know I did, but that's okay. That's not the worst thing that ever happened to me in StarCraft. I once upon a time proxied 2 gateways and lost the 1 pylon, proxying those 2 gateways to a probe cat that took minutes. And it costed me the game because I was microing my zealots. It was the final of it was the lower bracket final of an offline tournament. That was our level in Wings of Liberty.
Yeah, you were all pretty bad back then, for sure.
Just imagine like 12 zealots popping out of gateways, but none of them actually taking 1 second to kill a probe. That's killing my pilot.
Yeah, that's rough. Maybe your sound was bugged or something like that.
I was playing it in it was actually, believe it or not, that tournament took place in a coffee shop in Amsterdam. So it was not ideal, to say the least, to play video games. But yeah, that was esports in 2010, guys. One of the worst places I've ever played video games in, I'm gonna be honest. It was hard to stay focused after 8 hours. Anyways, we have our first Oracle flying towards the other side of the map. Namshar should be more than ready for this, of course. He's got queens. We see a spore crawler. There are 2 queens in the natural. DisK is just going up to 3 bases. I think DisK is a triple Oracle kind of guy.
We'll find out. When you say coffee shop in Amsterdam,
yes.
Was it only a coffee shop? Is it just
no? It was basically half internet cafe, half coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no, it had everything else that every other coffee shop had in Amsterdam. It's really hosted a StarCraft 2 event in 2010. Red won it. I got 3-0'd by Red in the upper bracket final, and then in the lower bracket final, I lost against a Protoss called the Loven, because I lost my proxy gateways to a probe, or at least I lost the pilot.
That's rough.
Yeah.
3 drones only found by this Oracle, so not the most successful Oracles ever. They're depleted out of energy already. These Adepts are gonna arrive, but they're kind of a little bit off sync with the Oracles, so we'll see. He does complete the shade and will kill a couple of links, so likely to find at least a couple more workers here.
Very successful start, man. Good job, actually, moving the low HP Adept away from that queen, so you got another double shut off. And I actually think you can get 1 more drone here. Gets 1 more drone. I wouldn't hate a cancel. DisK agrees with me, does not cancel, gets another one. My goodness. DisK is off to a flying start here, getting 4 drones and some lost mining time while the Oracles are still alive. And he's so comfortably going up to 3 bases on his side of the map. I mean, what's not to love if you're DisK?
Yeah, it's looking great. Love me some Dark Shrine as well. It's going to be a great defensive tool in the near future. though Namshar does have a lair starting. And maybe even he can find some sneaky DT damage on the other side as well. So we'll see what happens with that. It's a very late Dark Shrine, though. It's very unexpected, I feel like, right?
Yeah, no, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's more of a defensive Dark Shrine. If Namshar would have gone for a hatchery tech all-in, queens, roaches, run everything to the other side of the map, well, we saw that with Trap vs. Reyna. You warp in a couple of Dark Templars, and that's going to save you the game. Or even if they hit a little bit later with a lair, but they don't bring an Overseer because they didn't get attacked by DT, so why would they need an Overseer? Then Dark Templars can really just save you. And sometimes you can get lucky aggressively as well, but I really think this was more of a defensive Dark Shrine than an aggressive Dark Shrine.
Yeah, same. I think he's probably going to try to sneak one Dark DT into the third or something like that at some point and, you know, kill a few drones. But otherwise, mostly of a safety measure. And there's a War Prism as well, which is scary to see for a Zerg player because you'll think, is he moving out? And I'm still actually not sure. Is he moving out, Roddy?
Who's moving out?
DisK is.
He's sort of moving out, but I think it's poking. I think it's like, let's see, let's force out some units. You know, we've been talking about the Wings of Liberty. These are some Wings of Liberty tactics. I don't think DisK is moving out here to win the game with his army, but I do think he wants to scare Namshar a little bit, keep him honest, as Tasteless would say. You force out some units, you push back the creep a little bit, and then you can just go home. Wait for Blink to finish up, wait for +1 to finish up. Whenever you show a lot of units in the bottom side of the map, it's also more likely that Adepts find damage on the top side, so I think he's just sharking around.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Good 2 kills on that Adept. Probably just Zerglings, though. The creep spread is good for Namshar, especially at the top. So DisK has done a good job to carve himself a way through the middle path, should he want that. And that's where Stalkers are going to be particularly effective, I think, with the Blink. And now DisK actually also taking the forward fourth. So that is all good news for him, I think.
DisK obviously needs to be very careful with those sentries in the center. You don't want to lose those too early. Looks like this changed his mind. He warped in something, changed his mind. I think it was Zealots at first, and he's like, you know what? I won't go Zealots. I'm going to go for some DTs. Now, Namshar has one Overseer on the map, and you know where it is? In the top left side. So if that Spore Crawler falls in the main, this is going to be kind of an uncomfortable situation to deal with. DisK actually turns around with his Prism. Why? Okay, you have the Prism. Now he's sending it back into the main base again. One Overseer all the way on the other side of the map. This can get really bad, man. If that Spore Crawler falls in the main, Namshar is going to take a lot of damage.
Yeah, I just heard an Overseer start morphing in the main right away, so good reaction time by Namshar. He's still going to need to pull units in, though. Links are not going to cut it either. And a little bit of a blunder from Namshar not to have Overlords ready to spot the War Prism coming in the first place. DisK a little bit ambitious with that. Will recall only one of the Archons. But 6 workers lost for 2 DTs. Not too bad.
No, not too bad, but I do think that maybe this could have gotten a little more there. DisK also loses an Oracle. He seems a little flustered. He's going up to 5 bases. He's got a Disruptor. He's going to bring the Disruptor close to the Ravagers. One shot, many kills. My goodness, 8 kills on that Disruptor with its first Nova.
Yeah, I love what both players are doing here. Namshar did a very good job of breaking down the rocks. That makes the topology of the map a lot better for this type of army that kind of wants to fight out in the open. And a great job by DisK identifying this and kind of just forfeiting that base for the time being. That Disruptor can be saved, but it won't be. Focusing on the Disruptor from behind, however, was wonderful. And with the battery overcharge, I think DisK is looking to hold, especially with Banelings detonating onto a lot of Stalkers. But actually, Namshar seems to have quite a bit. And with Ling reinforcements, Roddy, it's getting scary.
Yeah, I think that final blink forward was a little bit unnecessary. I think DisK is like, I've got battery overcharge. There's absolutely no way I lose this fight. Well, DisK, it seems like plenty of Ravagers survived. He landed 2 of the biggest Novas you could land, but he's still in a bit of a pickle here. He does have another Nova ready to fire. Could get a couple of Ravagers here, gets 2 of them and a Roach. Losing 12 probes ain't that bad. Losing the Nexus. Is he gonna lose the Nexus? No, he doesn't. Are you kidding me? That is a 1 HP Nexus. Literally 1 HP.
Yeah, and the Ravager definitely had opportunities there to focus it down as well. So Namshar perhaps not paying attention where he should have. DisK, of course, does have the gold, so he wouldn't have lost that much economy in that he could have just transferred there. But that is a lot easier to harass off a base, and then he would have had to retake the Nexus, and that is further investments when he's already lagging behind 60 supply.
Couple of banelings are gonna roll into the gold. There's not too many probes to kill there, but if the other banelings connect with the Nexus will die. But the Zealots will throw their bodies in front of those Banes and soak them up. It's a hold, but it wasn't the prettiest hold by DisK. I really think that one forward blink was a big blunder. I think he thought this is the end of the engagement and he's about to run back and I'm gonna get all these Ravagers. But Namshar just stuck around, had a lot of extra links showing up, and I think it really surprised DisK.
Yeah, also a very clumped up group of Stalkers got hit by a lot of Banelings. So that was a little bit problematic as well. Stalkers are great at soaking up Banelings, but you know, anything that's too clumped up will suffer there.
This would have been like a nice game, I think, to have a Spire. Imagine you just make 12 more drones and then you start spamming Mudas. I actually think it would become pretty tricky for DisK, especially because DisK hasn't really been in the bases of Namshar for a while. I know he just wanted a single Brave DT into the natural, but it's like the only thing he really saw. I think DisK is just trying to hang in there, trying to rebuild his army. He's got a couple of Disruptors. He has been doing a good job in revelating this army. Namshar wants to kill the Observer and gets the Observer. And DisK just wants to land those big Purification Novas. There is War Prism harassment in the main base. A couple of Zealots and DPs. There are no Overseers nearby. 2 Overseers, both of them pretty far away. This at least is buying time for DisK, and that's kind of what he needs.
Yeah, that was really nice for DisK. The big problem for DisK right now is how good the creep spread for Namshar is up at the top of the map there. Because Namshar is just using that position to siege, and if DisK steps a little bit too close to the creep, then Namshar can surely overwhelm. So DisK has to be a little bit careful. He has to stand a little bit further back, I think, than he is right now. And then just kite with the Disruptor shots of creep.
I would not mind a few more Zealots in the main base. The Prism is just chilling there anyway. We have a Nova going forward. First one completely whiffs. Very good split there by Namshar. As Namshar once more has one Ravager harassing probes at the goal. The army is getting really close to each other. DisK is having a very tough time here. The Nova connects with just a couple of Banelings. The second one also. This is still a lot of Disruptors to run in though, Namshar. Are you sure about this?
Yeah, it's a little bit rough for Namshar, and the battery overcharge actually helping a lot. That last Disruptor shot was huge. Namshar going after the Nexus, and he will find it, however. The Ravager at the gold got taken down by something or retreated or something, so this is a much more successful hold by DisK, who at the same time is killing 12 workers on the other side of the map with a beautiful Zealot run back.
Yep, send a couple of Zealots towards the top side, and they found that very exposed base in the top right. The Zealots even making their way into the middle line of the gold, getting a few extra drones there. Namshar has 2 very brave queens ready to harass the probes at the gold now. Gold move, Cotton. I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it looks like they think better of it, and they will pull back for now. They do have a lot of energy, so they're probably pretty excited to go in there, but the 2 Stalkers will warn them off not to come any closer. And now DisK just on creep cleaning duty after a successful hold.
How long has that Prism been sitting there in the bottom of the main base?
Too long. I thought Namshar was going back for it as well at some point, and I was like, oh, finally he's moving back for it. But I guess he just parked a few units there. I wouldn't mind seeing a few Ravagers to take care of it, or at least Queens to make it go away for a bit.
Namshar does get a few roaches in range of the probes once more. A couple of links in the top left side too. That last fight, obviously, it did just not quite work out for Namshar. You can't run your entire army from one angle into a defending Protoss with battery overcharge, and I think that was 7 Disruptors.
Yeah.
Like, there is no happy ending there. Without Vipers or without a surround, you're just not going to be able to do that. So Namshar definitely throwing away, in my opinion, a position that was quite good for him. What? No, Namshar still finding more and more damage. He's doing a really good job getting on top of these probes. 33 probes have gone down throughout the game, and a great Aspire is done. First Corruptors are out. Well, we've got a game on our hands, Cats.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and I'm with you, especially off creep. That attack was a little bit strange. I could see why Namshar maybe thought that he had an opening, because all of the Disruptors were at the front and kind of clumped. So maybe he thought if I connect, onto those with the Banelings, then it's just lights out. But this did do it to pick off a lot of Banelings on the way to the Disruptors. And I mean, you have 7 tries, so...
Yeah. I'd be really shocked if he didn't do good, man. I think that would get me hyped. He's like, oh my god, and he misses all 7 shots. I've never seen anything like it. Didn't happen.
All right, so Vipers on the way as well. No Infestors to hold things in place, but Vipers are going to be particularly effective for the harpooning of the units, both disruptors and colossi. So it's gonna be on the stalkers to blink forward and take care and zone off those vipers.
We have a warp in the main base. Our first warp in minutes.
Yeah. Will it move? There it goes.
Yes, it will. He's like, oh my god, you got roaches and spines here? How did he know? Man, Namshar's just everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah.
Wow, gets the kill, by the way. While these Banelings are rolling in, a couple of Zerglings got a kill on the Nexus of the Triangle expand. Now Namshar is looking for those abducts. I mean, DisK's economy really is hurting, man. And he's about to face a pretty terrifying army. Namshar is almost up in army supply. He's got Broodlords, he's got Vipers. DisK is gonna have to land a couple of very good Novas, and I think feedbacks as well.
Yeah, those Banelings actually backing away right before connecting onto some of the Templars. So that could have been a little bit good, as a few of them would have gone down, and a beautiful blink forward from DisK will actually snipe 2 Broodlords right away.
Very well done. That's not easy, but he saw the opening. I actually like the Blinding Cloud as well. There we do have the Vipers getting in range of the Protoss army. 2 Colossi do get abducted. So even though Namshar lost 2 expensive units, DisK also losing 2 very expensive units there at the tail end of all of it. The Prism moved, by the way.
Most of the High Templars, or all of the High Templars, taken down as well. A little bit of a misclick there by DisK, but will end up cleaning up the Broodlords. At the same time, he's continuing to take probe damage at the gold, as our observer Niall is showing us, and that War Prism will finally go down.
Almost feels like DisK is ready to just end this as soon as he gets +3. I mean, +3 attack is almost ready. He's very, very Stalker heavy. Still 1 Colossus left. Obviously, Namshar has been taking a lot of economic damage too, but he is still maxed out. But if Namshar loses his army once, he's definitely not remaxing. That famous Zerg remax will not be seen in this game.
Yeah, very good composure, by the way, from DisK, not to warp in all of his units in one place. Namshar kind of double backs after basically faking going into the third, and then kind of splits his army between both bases. But DisK only used, a couple of warp-ins in each base, and so he successfully defends with only 2 probe losses. It's still very much an open game, it feels like.
7 High Templars just being wiped in by DisK, who does have Storm, of course, so he can feed back the Vipers, but he can also Storm. Namshar still has 5-6 Roaches in his main base, even though that Prism A didn't do a whole lot, and B, it did get finally taken out by some Corruptors. Kind of feels like Namshar needs all of his supply when these armies clash, because this has been a very scrappy game with a lot of workers going down. I don't think you're really going to get a second chance. So if the big battle does take place, I really think you want to have every single unit participate in that battle.
Yeah, I absolutely love how DisK tags the army and then starts clearing creep, right? Because you never want to really engage with an army that's tagged as a Zerg, especially when you're so reliant on the Vipers and the feedback has a little bit of extra range. And for reasons like this, right? The Protoss player is going to see you coming and potentially pre-fire disruptors and the like. So very well done by him, and without that creep spread, I mean, the map seems a little bit more open, and wow, another Broodlord snipe. How many has that been? I don't feel like they've gotten to make too many babies, those Broodlords.
Yeah, I think 6 Broodlords have basically been sniped in the center of the map. The other 2 obviously got picked off just by a very good blink. Namshar does have another double bailing run by happening though. Good Stalker warpins, excellent even. Second time today that we see that. Early today, Gerald really was on the money with good defensive Stalker warpins. And now it's DisK also saving a lot of his probes. Namshar did find his hands on a few more resources, so he's going to make more Broodlords. He currently only has 2, but there are 4 additional ones in the way. Make that 6 even. If I kind of want to see Namshar just... I know it's hard to force a fight, and that's why I think maybe an Infestor or 2 would be really sick, but it's obviously very hard to control that.
Yeah, it would be very difficult, but Infestors are amazing to hold things in place for those Broodlords and the Blinding Clouds. So I would very much like to see that. Once upon a time, everyone was kind of an expert with those Infestor Broodlords.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago, yeah.
And those Infestors were better, to be fair.
Yeah, they were way better. They were worth the effort.
Yep, another forward blink by DisK, finds 1 or 2 Broodlords, and then is forced to disengage because of the Blinding Clouds. I gotta say though, DisK has done a really good job just getting in there, picking up some of these expensive units. This is a nice spot for Namshar to potentially fight, because obviously the Stalkers can't really blink underneath the Broodlords. But DisK is aware of that, and that's why he's going to disengage. Still building 4 or 5 probes at a time. I mean, he has lost 58. He's only at 47, but now he's like, you know what? If I'm getting that base in the top left side, I want to be able to saturate it. So he is going back into probe production.
Yeah, lovely Templar actually will kill 6 drones as well as feedback a queen just to give it a good scare. And I really love the map control that DisK has taken. All of a sudden, it's kind of a split map where, you know, Namshar doesn't really have much business moving outside of his creep. And it's becoming increasingly more difficult to spread that creep back out.
Another forward blink. I don't know if I like this one. Really good blinding clouds by Namshar. It's going to push most of these stalkers away. One abduct on the Colossus. Will that Colossus fall? Ooh, DisK with another forward blink, using the disruptors to force away the Ravages and the Roaches. And DisK is really down in supply, but he's winning this fight. Unless I'm crazy, he's going to blink forward one more time. Gets the final Broodlord too. And there's only one Broodlord remaining. Namshar supply, I think, is a little bit deceiving. A lot of units are in production. They're coming in from every angle. Zerglings are good, but there are still plenty of storms to work with too for this.
Yeah, and Archons as well to just anchor for those, for the rest of his units, right? So it's going to be very difficult for this to engage because he doesn't have much army complexity. Some of those zealots will shower in the storm. And this is a dangerous position from DisK. He could get surrounded here, so good on him to pick off the hatchery and get out right away through the chokest area that he could find. Namshar finally using some of his counterattacks, and I can't help but to feel that he has forgotten a lot of those links at 12 o'clock. They've been sitting there for a while.
I mean, we know that Namshar's obviously not an F2er because those roaches were in the main base forever too.
Yeah.
A couple of links do find some probes in the top left side. DisK really was floating a lot of money and kind of still is. He's got 8 gateways, but he's just not warping in anything. And now he actually makes an oracle. It's like he really just doesn't want to make... He wants to make extra gateways before he makes any gateway units. It's going to go for a few High Templars now by the looks of it. Losing 18 probes there. The Lynx going to town on everything in the top left side. My goodness, those Lynx are feisty. +3 melee and Adrenal Glands. Lynx in the main base too. If I'm Namshar, killed a Dark Shrine. Namshar agrees. He's going to go for it immediately. Well, I feel like this was almost there. But because he just wasn't spending his money for the longest time, he's now actually struggling a bit.
Yeah, and I would love to see some static defense as well from him. Like, some cannons would go and do wonders for him. I think just to anchor, to buy time for more units to get there, for the warpins to actually come through, because these links are really destroying him throughout the game.
Yep, the links are... Well, they took care of pretty much every single probe in the top left side, but the Dark Templars will keep it safe. I actually think that DisK should have just killed that Dark Shrine instead of, Namshar, instead of trying to run away, because there were a couple of units being warped in. These links have so much DPS, and I actually think he would have been able to get it. And if he would have taken out the Dark Shrine, then these Dark Templars would not have saved the base in the top left side. But that didn't happen, so we're going to focus on the next fight, where the Broodlord sat, a little bit further north. In the center. Oracle is, I think, looking for them. DisK just wants to land the revelation. Now we have more links making their way into the main base, and there is an Overseer brought along too. Now Namshar is going to finish what he started before. No more defensive Dark Templars, and this is in an awkward spot. This is like the only place where I don't think he wins the fight. Because, yeah, you can't really blink forward there, right? Because then the Broodlords can just go to the high ground.
Yeah, and I was scared that he was going to feel desperate there with the Ling run by in the main to kind of press the issue, but no, he keeps his composure, he pulls the army back, and you have to notice that these guys are burrowing over and over again. Please, some cannons would be so great.
Yeah, even just one indeed, but yeah, multiple cannons be even better. Namshar does fire up an Infestor. I mean, DisK's probe count is shockingly low at this point. Only 26 probes remaining. Namshar has killed 103 probes throughout this game. That's honestly quite insane, because it wasn't that he got like 50 at once or 70 at once. It was just throughout time, 10, 10, 10, 10. And obviously the last 2 minutes he did amazing with his +3 Zerglings.
Yeah, so if we look at the income right now, I mean, it's heavily in favor of Namshar. DisK has to make something happen. If he can't take this base down, then that's a lot of real estate that Namshar is going to lose. And then even though he has a great drone count, comparatively at least, he doesn't really have much minerals to mine aside from that one forward base.
Namshar's even going to take the base at 6 o'clock. I feel like you almost never see anyone take that. The other day I was playing a ladder game. I was like, you know what? I'm really going to take this base just because I've never seen anyone mine from it. Just to make sure it's not bugged, you know? But it worked, cats. I can tell you that it does work.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're getting to that stage of the game where the players have to decide which one of those bases they want to take, either the 12 o'clock or the 6 o'clock. More probes are going to fall here from this
All
time
the
with an
probes,
Ultralisk in the mix.
That's pretty much it. So the armies are getting dangerously close to each other. A couple storms do land, but these ultras are very tanky. DisK does still have a pretty terrifying army. Do we have any Vipers? Ooh, there are no Vipers. Forward blink. One Broodlord goes down. Second one goes down too. Is DisK's army good enough to win the game? I kind of still think it is, but it does need to happen right about now. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. DisK, there is no more time to dance on the edge of creep. You got to full send it.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. There's also a fungal still available, a single fungal that could be game deciding as well. So we'll see if this can find an angle to engage here. It's very difficult to engage out in the open. You mentioned the positioning is difficult. There's only one Immortal to account for 4 Ultralisks.
Yeah, he's making a void ray. I really feel that DisK is giving Namshar too much time. It's like, mate, you've got 0 probes. Every second that goes by is a good one for your opponent and a bad one for you. And I actually think Namshar's army was quite a bit weaker 25 seconds ago than it currently is. It may not have worked, but waiting is definitely not going to work. Some great fungals landing here by our Swedish-Canadian Zerg. The Ultras are going to get on top of the Stalkers and the Archons. And it will be all Namshar for game 1 as DisK has lost every single probe. And is going to lose his army here too. What a crazy game. 28-minute game here on Blackburn. But it will go in favor of Namshar.
Yeah, very well done by Namshar, really keeping up on top of things with a huge sigh of relief or whatever that was. He was like, yeah, I don't know what face that was, but it was a pleasurable face in any case, and he deserves it after that game. I mean, he played well, right? Like the Rambites were insane.
He played very well. There were multiple moments where I didn't really love it, especially after that fight which he took when he ran into the 7 disruptors. It really didn't look that pretty. I think there were some moments where DisK was a bit too passive, like not just towards the end, but also when he won that big fight in the center and he was chasing down those Broodlords. I kind of wish he had 1,500 minerals in the bank, just warp in 10 Zealots, queue up a Prism, and try to keep applying pressure, because Namshar was really all over the place, but his center army, it was nothing. It was like 2 Ravages, a Queen, a couple Links. I would have loved to see DisK just keep applying some pressure and stay in the face of his opponent, because his economy was never that great. Like, at no moment did he have more than 70 workers in this game, but basically for the last 17 minutes, he was around 60 or less. Like, that's not proper late game economy, right? So if that's what you're working with and you are winning a fight, you want to make sure that you keep applying pressure and you don't let your opponent go, because Namshar was outmining DisK for pretty much the entirety of this game. He took the worker lead at minute 3 and he never let go.
Yeah, most definitely. And DisK did find success with some of his run-bys while those fights were going on, and some of them were chaotic moments, but then he didn't follow through towards the end, right? Like, it's like, if it's working, then keep doing it type thing. But it seemed like he slowed down at certain points and he was just not able to keep up. And another thing that I'll keep harping on, cannons would have really gone a long way.
Yes.
Or was just completely abusing those mineral lines.
And he had the money for it as well. It's not that he didn't have any money. Of course, towards the end, when he was at 16 probes or 25 probes, yeah, then it becomes painful to warp in cannons, because you just kind of want to focus on the fight and get the best possible army to just win the fight and then win the game. But there were definitely moments where he still had 45 probes. He had 1k minerals in the bank. Get a couple cannons, even if it's not even to protect your probes, but it's just to prevent those links from burrowing every single time you warp in some units.
Yeah, he didn't have money for cannons because he didn't make cannons.
That's deep. I want to get it on my wall behind me.
Yeah. The next map is going to be 2000 atmospheres, however. Do you feel any particular... I think this is a great Queen Walk map, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty solid one. But I don't know, if DisK is not going to go for one of these heavy Void Ray openings, I don't think we're going to see too many Queen Walks, right? You don't want a Queen Walk into Blink Stalkers, because Blink will most of the time finish up. And static defenses and Blink is just amazing, because the defenses help you to deal with the Links, and Roaches, they cannot find Blink Stalkers off creep unless you truly have overwhelming numbers. I mean, I saw this a bit yesterday too. I feel like there are some moments where DisK, he finds himself in these super scrappy games and it's very hard to figure out where you're at. But eventually you just gotta flip the switch and be like, all right, that's my kill switch and I'm gonna try to end this game now. But it feels like no matter what happens in games, he doesn't really have that. He's just kind of like, oh, let's not like mess up, let's not throw away too many units. Sometimes you just gotta close your eyes and pray, because the longer it goes, the worse it will get for you.
Yeah, in those final moments for sure. I mean, Namshar even just took the fight, but that's letting Namshar choose when to take the fight, right? So this was kind of like hoping that Namshar would overextend off of creep, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But by the time that Namshar chooses to go off of creep, it's because he just has an overwhelming force. Yeah, I'm completely with you there.
Like when one point where he was literally going from 12 probes to 0, the brutes were all by themselves on the right side, and I was like, well, this is it. This is literally the moment you gotta blink, because most of the Lings and Banes were at the bottom, and sure, they would swarm the Stalkers, but he would have actually probably killed 5 out of 6 Brute Lords without too many issues, and then you still have the Colossus and Archons. I think that's the best fight he could have ever taken, and instead he didn't take it, and then obviously Namshar repositioned his units. The game went in favor of our Canadian Swedish Zergi. It was a fun one for sure. Almost 28 minutes. Let's see what game 2 has in store for us. In the bottom left side, the man who is taking the 1-0 lead here, representing Storm Gaming, it is Namshar.
And in the top right hand side for Root Gaming, sporting the best beard in the world, it is DisK. That's a gate expand. It seems to be kind of an NA special, not to do the earlier scout, the earlier probe scout to delay the hatchery at the natural. Was talking about it with Wardy a little bit. You as a Protoss player, Roddy, is there any circumstances where you feel like that's not the way, or?
I mean, I feel like a lot of Protoss players, they do it their own way. Like either you scout very early where you're like, I really want to get the block, or you can indeed scout a bit later. I have my own weird scout timing. Lambo makes fun of me for it. He says it's the worst timing in the world because it's early enough to really hurt your economy, but too late to block. And I'm like, all right. I was like, it works for me. Okay, Lambo, leave me alone. But yeah, I think that DisK is just all right, I guess, with Zergs, letting their hatch get up whenever moment.
Alrighty. So, yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary going on here. I'm not sure. How do you finish that wall of? You put the... Oh. Sorry,
Game
please pause. You have to put a gateway like behind, I guess, the cyber core there?
I had to close my window, so I actually missed what you said there for a split second. And Namshar actually went for a pause. So can you repeat that one for me, mate?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you finish that wall off? I always had trouble walling off as Protoss. I guess you just put a gateway behind the cyber core, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward.
It works. I think this is a pretty good wall. It's very easy to wall off on this map, actually, because I feel like there are many ways to potentially mess it up, but there's always a save. Just, I feel like you really have to try to mess up a wall in 2K Atmosphere. I don't know. Like, it's just so much space for your third building that you can always fix. Even if you misposition things a little bit, there is always an easy fix behind it.
Is that a problem for the surface area that it leaves, like against 12 pools and such, or is the map big enough that 12 pools just not a concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the response would have been a bit different then anyway, but no, I don't think so. I feel like these guys got so good in dealing with that. You can just dance a little bit, and yeah, there will be a lot of surface area, but with a Zealot, you can still get some swipes off, and then you will force the Zerglings to disengage anyways. I don't think it's a big deal.
So it is a hotkey issue that we are having here on the side of Namshar. Should be resolved promptly. Sort of actually also alluded to hotkey issues in the first game of his series today. And he said that kind of tilted him and it led into the next game for him. So a few players have had hotkey issues, I guess, from the new accounts, right?
Yeah, no, actually Showtime the other day as well, and it seems like you just have to rehost and then everything gets fixed. But all right, Namshar says that he is good to go, so hopefully he double-checked everything. Maybe his hotkeys are not too complicated. And some people, they change everything, and then you just kind of have to rehost the game. Otherwise, it takes a year to set it up.
Yeah.
I'm very pure. I have not changed anything, cats.
You didn't check it? Nothing?
Zero, nada.
Are you kidding right now? You don't even use the tilde key?
Nope, I use nothing. I play the game the way it comes the moment you install it.
Yeah, I mean, the tilde key is just prime real estate, you know?
Yeah. It is a very pure experience for me. The only thing, obviously, I have changed is that you have to turn off this enable to select enemy unit thing, because that's just very, very, very silly. I do want to be able to click on my enemy units.
Well, what about health bars?
Just always on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, no hotkeys, no camera. I don't use camera locations either. Do you?
Yeah, but I don't use them as much as I should. I set them up and I use them early game, but then I tend to forget later in the game, to be honest.
So you're just spamming them, but then you don't use them when you need it the most?
Well, I do use them on occasion, but when it gets really chaotic, I tend to forget. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, but that's what they're for, when it gets chaotic.
I know. Why are you giving me? You don't even use them at all. At least I'm trying here, Rod.
Yeah, but at least I'm not spamming them in the beginning of the game, but then I still use my mouse when it gets dicey.
I mean, that's how you get used to them, right? You spam them and you know where they are, and then your finger gets familiar with the movement.
I've always find it very unpleasant to watch streams of people that spam camera hotkeys in the beginning of the game.
Is that why you don't do it? For the fans?
That is the main reason why I never force myself to learn it, because I think it's a very unpleasant viewing experience.
Fair enough.
Anyways, focusing on this one, we've got Stargate, we've got Oracle. Obviously, DisK in a bit of trouble. Last season was amazing for him. He went 6-1 in the group. This season, he started off 2-0. You feel like no biggie. Loses to Nina yesterday, 2-0. And it's like, all right, 2-1, no man overboard yet. And now DisK also trailing in this one. And if he loses to the Namshar here, Namshar actually will tie him in the group. But then, of course, Namshar has that little head-to-head advantage. Things can get tricky for DisK. He really kind of needs a victory, or at least a map win.
Yeah, that would be really important for him to get. I think he can still very much do it. There's going to be a Twilight actually being the follow-up here after the 2 Oracles. So he seems to really favor these 2 Oracles over Void Race, at least in the game so far.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's safe to say that DisK did not lose it in the early game or the early mid-game last one. And like A, it was a very long game, but B, I also think there was a way for him to defend that first big attack when he had all the Stalkers in the battery overcharge a bit better. It's just that he thought it was done and he blinks forward and then suddenly all the Zerglings show up and more Ravagers and Roaches. It's like, oh, that was a blink too far.
Yeah, and he did find a lot more value out of these Oracles than I see from most Protoss players, right? Like he was always like revelating and clearing creep later on and just consistently scouting and getting a lot of value out of them. So I don't mind it one bit.
You mentioned a Queen Wildcats. We have 5 Queens out, 3 more Queens on the way, 12 Roaches. You remember that Dark Shrine the last game? If this would have... Oh, the Oracles! Oh, 1 Oracle flies over 4 Queens and falls. Namshar is going for the Queen Walk. And if this would have had... Okay, he is going to get a Dark Shrine. Now there is going to be a Lair as well. But this Dark Shrine is, I feel, a lot later than the Dark Shrine of the previous game.
Yeah, it might still be good enough to defend eventually. He has some sentries as well. I don't know. I kind of feel okay with a triangle versus the other base though against this sort of walk. I feel like the triangle's a little bit more or better connected to the natural base.
Namshar is attacking a base that doesn't exist because he didn't even know this took the triangle. This is the first time that Namshar makes it to the other side of the map. So now he's going to show up and realizes that he took a bit of a detour with his Queens. And every second counts when you go for builds like this. I'm taking a look at Overseers nearby. Dark Shrine more than halfway done.
I don't see any Overlords in the vicinity, so it's going to have to morph back at home. If this can buy enough time for the Dark Shrine to pop in, then that'll be fantastic. Now retreating to his shield batteries, which is now offering the big overcharge. He will have to use a Warpin to wall off a little bit more. But the Dark Shrine will be done in just a few seconds, and from then on, Namshar will have to back away, I think, at least until he gets another Overlord.
2 gateways are going to get unpowered. It's actually getting a little bit painful. We do have the Dark Templars now in the natural. They're going to do really well against the Roaches, but that Immortal got surrounded by Zerglings. The floodgates are still open. Blink is not done yet, by the way. 11 seconds away from finishing up. I do think that DisK will clean this up, but the question is how many probes is he going to lose before he cleans all of this up?
I think not enough for Namshar to be ahead. And now there's Overseers morphing, but that took a while from Namshar. And these are slow units. Yeah. All the Queens are going to die in the retreat. There's just no helping that. And there might be a new wave from Namshar, but even he seems to be shying away from it as he starts droning right away. And I mean, this 52 workers, I don't hate his position at all.
No, he's got a lot of money in the bank, and if he spends that money, then the supplies are actually a lot closer than they currently are too. And that took indeed a very long time for Namshar. Maybe he just never believed that those overseers would show up in time to save his queens or anything. I gotta say, good job by DisK, man, that he only lost 7 probes there. Because at one point, the floodgates were wide open, 2 out of 4 gateways were unpowered, and DTs are really not the best cleanup against Lynx. Speaking of DT, there is one in the bottom side, slicing up some drones, but an overseer is gonna reveal it. Yeah, that could have been a lot worse. Good defense by DisK in the end.
Yeah. Now, Namshar is really powering up, though. He's going to go over 80 workers when the rest of them spawn. So that is looking pretty sexy for him. He is establishing that 4th base. His creep spread, however, is really lacking, and he lost a lot of queens. So I don't know that... actually, he still has 7. So I guess he can get back on that job.
81 drones, 7 queens. Not looking all that bad, but DisK definitely has time to spend his money and get the setup going that he's comfortable with. This is going to pick off one of those queens, wants to get a second one, does not get the second one. Stocks could be in a bit of trouble, they're going to get surrounded, they just blinked. They can blink again in a couple of seconds. The circling count's still quite high though. Namshar's going to try to set another surround up. Ooh, it's a lot of stalkers to lose. Stalkers are pretty pricey units.
Yeah, we'll get taxed on the retreat there as Namshar is gonna continue the chase. DisK will now join up with the rest of his army. More stalkers here to back up the few that survived that engagement. And yeah, I mean, the game's kind of gonna stabilize here as DisK is also taking his 4th base and adding probably disruptors, or I wouldn't even mind Colossus right now. Maybe better than disruptors even, I'm not sure. I guess with this many Ravagers, I like disruptors.
I'm actually with you. I don't hate Colossus in general. I remember suggesting it once to Hearthstone before, like partying and stuff started doing it, and Hearthstone was like, no. I'm like, why not? He's like, well, just because whenever I make them, they always lose. Namshar doesn't respect the battery overcharge at all. Just gets right on top of all these stalkers, gets the Immortal too. It does get a bit complicated here. I think DisK is really surprised at Namshar showing up this committed with this many units again. Really sweet positioning on the stalkers, I gotta say, but DisK's army is really small. I'm honestly starting to get very, very concerned here for DisK in this best of 3, and potentially for him in this tournament, man, because 2-2 after 4 play days, that is nowhere near as good as he was performing last season.
Yeah, also with a fancy move there to snipe the Overseer, but not really having the DT Warpins right away to back that play up. So Namshar was able to linger a little bit longer and do a little bit more damage, and now he can just come back with more Overseers. So that could be problematic. However, 2 disruptors in production for DisK, and maybe that's why he was looking to buy time more than anything else.
Yeah.
And this Zealot run by also looking pretty decent.
So does the Zergling run by? We're gonna get a recall of a couple of Stalkers, I assume. Yep, Stalkers and Zealots. So only 2 probes going down. Zealots are gonna make their way deep into the natural. The nice thing about this is not the amount of damage this is gonna deal, but it's gonna give DisK time, right, to get those extra disruptors out. That's what he needs.
Oh.
Picking up disruptors, 1 fires on the Ravagers. Second shot is real solid, and he's actually keeping them alive as well. Finally, 1 does fall. Namshar is floating a lot of money as he's going for another big circling run by. DisK also has money. Those cannons, Cats, that you ordered in the first game. Can we get some cannons on the top left side, please?
Please. It's gonna be shield batteries instead this time around. But yeah, Namshar, I think that has been his strong suit, his strong point. DisK has been very good against the Baneling run-bys, however, so we'll see if he can continue to hold here. Does he have enough disruptors this time around? 1 preemptive shot will miss, but he has another 3.
Second one does do a lot of Banelings in the top left side. They will find the probes that they are looking for, and pretty much each and every single... Oh, come on, Banelings, make up your mind. Okay, they do make up their mind. 19 workers going on. It's a big victory there for Namshar. Does, of course, lose a lot of Banelings in the process, but hey, that's what they're for. And the average unspent resources has been quite high on both sides while being nowhere near maxed out over the last few minutes.
Yeah, the Spire that you ordered in the last game is being made, but I think it's again for just Broodlords, right? It seems like Namshar is very set on the same type of transition. I would not mind a Muta switch, especially with this much money banked up. Oh. And yeah, there being no Phoenix whatsoever and just singles target as far as he knows.
DisK actually fired a nice Nova on like 12 morphing Banelings, so he got the kill on all those links. Namshar lost a few extra resources. Morlings is running into the meat grinder, but at the same time, Banelings again. Why does DisK hate cannons so much?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But it's getting a little bit painful here. I mean, the supplies are still relatively close. This seems like it should still be a doable game for DisK. But it's getting definitely a little bit harder and harder, I think, as he trails behind now 30 workers.
Yep, 30 workers is a lot. And once Broodlords are out, I do think it's going to be hard for him to get a good fight. Because I actually think it's a bit easier on this map to force a good fight with the Broodlords than on Blackburn. Even though you can say maybe like you always have to go through the center, and on this map you can kind of run circles around the brutes, but I can just see it being a bit easier. There's a lot of safe spots for the Broodlords because there's a lot of high ground, low ground here to work with.
Yeah, another run by attempt here from Namshar. Does DisK have a warping available? Yeah, he does, but there's a hole in the wall. Unfortunately for him, you were saying how difficult it is to mess that one up.
Yeah, it's not. That has been there all game long then, right? Because nothing died. Oh no!
So, yeah.
No! He lost the gateways. To be fair, he lost the gateways. Oh, the disruptors are very exposed, and they actually get surrounded by Zerglings. Few of these Novas are good though. That one is real good. That one is real good. But DisK's disruptor still in a bit of trouble. He is gonna push all of this away. He's losing 13 probes again. He needs to rebuild these probes. Like DisK's economy is simply not good enough to be taking this much damage, right? You can take this kinds of damage if you're at 74 probes and then you fall to 63, no biggie, you make 11 more. But once you're at 50 and you keep taking economic hits, that's something that you just can't keep up for a very long time.
All right, maybe we're having the killer instinct that you were requesting as well from DisK. There is a very narrow window before 8 Broodlords finish morphing. He will be forced to warp in units defensively as well. And with that and the creep still here, I think DisK is going to be wise to back away. How do you transition? Do you think he's just going to continue to commit for this Stalker Disruptor answer to the Broodlords? Like, is it too difficult to transition out of that?
I actually think it could just be a preferred style as well. Some people just really hate Tempest, but I also don't think, like, if you're at 50 probes, or now this case 56, but you're stuck on 4 bases, you know, getting up to 5 is hard. Like, do you really drop a fleet beacon now and a second target and then start making Tempest? I think that will all just take a bit too long. If this feels comfortable with this army and he's good with it and he can make it shine, then I really don't hate that he stays on this. But yeah, he needs to make damn sure that A, he doesn't take more damage at home, and B, he's very, very careful. But I do think his army is capable of winning a fight, for sure.
All right, that's good to know. And I think that, yeah, I think that he is good with it, right? Like, he was doing really well last game. But the problem is this time around, there's so many more Broodlords than there were ever last game, because last time around, DisK was able to reset the Broodlord card over and over.
Banelings, topside.
Ooh, Zealots are not what you want to deal with those. Good blink, and then, then lets them in anyway. So they are going to kill 14 workers, unfortunately. On the other side, another 6 make it whatever that was.
Well, we're gonna have a game deciding fight. Novas on the right side are gonna try to zone the Ravagers away. The Broodlords are still going quite strong. Stalkers blink forward one more time. I mean, DisK is really gonna need a flawless victory here, and I do think he can still win this fight, maybe with another forward blink, but he's kind of running out of steam. Stalker's having a hard time getting those final 2 Broodlords. The Ravagers getting some shots off on the Disruptors. I mean, DisK wins the fight, but can he also win the next fight?
Yeah, the Remax is going to be the big problem, because Namshar enjoys now a 51 worker lead, and he can pretty much Remax on anything, it feels like, and just collapse onto this army, and there's not going to be much that this can do. And this is part of the problem with Disruptors offensively on creep. The Zerg army is going to be a lot more maneuverable. It's a lot more difficult to hit those shots.
DisK has not been rebuilding any probes. He's going to warp in a few more Templars. No, he decides to recall something. What did he? Oh, an Archon that's been stuck in the main. Yeah, DisK is going for it, Cat. He just wants to win the game with the army that he has. And to be fair, if he just goes up against Ground Army, he's got 4 Disruptors, 5 Archons. I'd love to see him use that Prism indeed, because it's just been kind of idling on the left side forever. Namshar is setting up another Baneling run by, and he's going to kill pretty much the last few probes that DisK has. So DisK, it really is now or never, mate. After losing all these probes, you just gotta close your eyes and you gotta try to win the game with what you got. There's a couple of Zealots in the main base, so that's kind of cool. This is it, cats. Can a couple of Oracles and Disruptors win the game? The army supplies really are very close, and there are no Broodlords or something.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, but DisK is still hesitant. It still feels like he wants to bait Namshar out of creep, but it is the same situation where every second that goes by, it's gonna be a much better second for Namshar. If we just look at the income graph, I mean, it's not even close.
Nope, it's not a fair fight. I almost wish that he would have gone. Oh, that's maybe a nice Nova. Does connect with a couple of Ravages. He's got another one. Namshar standing in a lot of Zerglings from the top. So these links are going to get nice and comfy with the Stalkers. But do we have another Nova? This is where you need to fire that one. Nova, the Ravages, he fires. That's a good shot. And DisK is actually still trying to make the best of this. But he is running out of steam. It's just not quite enough. GG.